there's a lot more going on in the fall feast than what we might think at first. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 2 of the special readings attached to Yom Teruah. Yesterday, we asked the question at the end if there might be a connection between Pesach and Yom Teruah. Now, there are several things that you can read pertaining to Pesach and Yom Kippur, but what about Yom Teruah? Traditionally, the readings for Yom Teruah include Bereshit, or Genesis chapter 21, where we read about the birth of Yitzchak to Abraham and to Sarah, and we also read about the dismissal of Hagar and Ishmael from their home and from their location. I also said yesterday, toward the middle or the end, that Yitzchak was born at Pesach. Now, how do we come to that conclusion? If we go to chapter number 18 of Bereshit, I think I referenced 17 yesterday, but let's look at chapter number 18, verse number 6. So Abraham ran into the tent to Sarah and said, "Hurry, make 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes." The word used here is ugot, which happens to be the same word used in Shemot or Exodus chapter 12, verse 39, that references matzah or unleavened bread. So the cakes in particular here were not given enough time to rise up and to fluff up with leaven, but rather they were unleavened cakes of bread. We also find that when the messengers that were accompanying Yahweh here in this chapter show up at Lot's house, he also puts out before them unleavened bread. So it's not as if this is the only time at Pesach that unleavened bread was ever eaten. It does suggest to us, when we go to chapter number 21, it says in chapter 21, verse 1 and 2, Yahweh visited Sarah as he said, and Yahweh did for Sarah as he had spoken. So Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the appointed time, the moed, of which Yahweh had spoken to him. So it does seem that there is a moed connected to this time frame. For Yah says, this time next year you will bear a son. Not in 9 months, but this time next year, which coincides as a moed and unleavened bread. It stands to a reasonable conclusion then that Pesach is the time that we're talking about and that Yitzchak was born at Pesach. Again, a point from yesterday, we talked about the fact that Yah opened up Sarah's womb. Is there then a connection of Pesach and the opening of Sarah's womb and other wombs being opened that also correspond to Yom Teruah? I'm going to go out on a limb here. This is my opinion. This is not a doctrine. Please don't divide yourself among yourselves over this issue. This is just me thinking here. Yah said to Moshe in Shemot chapter number 3, verse number 6, I am the Elohim of your father, Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Yaakov. And Moshe hid his face, for he's afraid to look at Elohim. And Yahweh said, I have indeed seen the oppression of my people who are in Mitzrayim. And then he says in verse 10, and now come, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Mitzrayim. The deliverer, Moshe, coming and doing Yah's bidding in Mitzrayim had the effect of the opening of Mitzrayim's womb, if you will, and Am Israel being birthed out of the midst of it. So as the doors to Mitzrayim were open, symbolically, figuratively, perhaps we could say, the womb of Mitzrayim gave birth to Israel. That is, they went down as a family. They came out as a nation. So there was this gestation period, 430 some years, in which Israel was brought forth not as just a family, but an entire nation of people. At Yom Teruah, likewise, we have the deliverer for these same people and their future generations being brought forth in great deliverance from the authorities of Mitzrayim or Mitzrite-like nations in the earth who are oppressors of Israel. This time it's not the birthing of the nations, so to speak, the birthing of the heavens. The heavens' womb opens and Yeshua is brought forth to us as the firstborn of Yah, the very image of Yah in human form. And he is presented to us. At that advent, the wombs of the nations, wherever we are held, from the four corners of the earth, these nations will give birth to the people of Am Israel, and we will be presented forth. So there's a great birthing, figuratively speaking, of course, that is going to take place on that day. The question is, are we going to be aborted before our birth? Now, how would that happen? One of two ways. One is that we would cause the abortion ourselves. That is, that we would deny ourselves, deny the legitimacy of our birth, that we would prefer to stay within the womb of our host nations in exile, refusing to be birthed. The other is that by oppression of the host nation, that we would be punished to a place of ceasing to live. But Rav Shaul says that the dead in Messiah will rise first. The nations cannot abort us to the place that we cannot be raised up. There is resurrection power available for us. Though they slay us, yet in our flesh we shall see our Mashiach. For we know that our Redeemer lives. So there's only one way that I am seeing whereby we will not participate in this, and that's if we choose to not do so. Now, it is the day of Yom Teruah, the day of noisings, the day of soundings of great noise and music and the sounding of the shofar, that we awaken ourselves. None of us can remember what it was like in the womb. Matter of fact, if anyone said that they could, I would be discouraged from continuing the conversation. None of us remember those moments. But there was something instinctively within us as an unborn child in our mother's wombs where it's time. This is it. This is the day. We need to be birthed today. There is a need of awakening within the body of Mashiach, contained in church congregations, contained in Hebraic roots congregations, Messianic congregations, and thousands, perhaps even tens or hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions, I don't know, around the world who are disconnected, disfranchised. They have no connection. They don't know who they are. That the Spirit of Yah would awaken us with the sounding of the shofar when we meet with whoever it is that we can meet with, by ourselves or a group in a living room or in a building somewhere, and we sound the shofarot. Understand, we're not just hearing it within the sound of the walls, but by the Ruach HaKodesh is being announced the world over. Awakened body of Messiah, it's time for our birthing. May the heavens birth Yeshua for us. Come quickly, Messiah. Even so, come quickly. See you again tomorrow. Till then, shalom.